Welcome everyone to the Monday night, webinar with live Q&A. Erin Snow, our clinical director, is here tonight. She and Dr. Rob alternate weeks, so this is Erin's week today. So, and since we don't have any questions yet, you know, want to share some topics or things that you've been seeing in your world, shall we say,
Well,
in your world?
that this is similar to a therapy session where people, if they call it the doorknob drop, like right as they're walking out the door, they'll kind of say like the gnarly thing, and you're like, wow, we could have spent the whole session on that. You know, it's similar at the webinars. Questions are roll in at the end, and sometimes people are getting up the courage to ask a question. I mean, obviously it's anonymous and nobody knows it's you or what you're asking. But then we run out of time, and I'm always like, dang it, I wanted to answer those questions. So definitely, if it's a general question, if it's specific to your situation, what we know is that definitely, you know, I have people call all the time and they're asking, oh yeah, good question. This came in. But they're telling their story and they feel like they're the only one. And I think it's important for us to normalize that betrayed partners are oftentimes going through the same kind of up and down roller coaster of emotions. And for addicts that are experiencing what they're experiencing, I'm always like, you are not unique in this way. Every call I get where there's a crisis or something's going on, that this like it feels the same, and there's many other men out there dealing with the same thing, and so finding that community is super important.
And I agree. I had an email and it was like it was going to be the most unique thing on the planet, and I said maybe, but I have a hard time, feel free to share more so I can do a better job of guiding. And they said something, and it was on the a little bit more unique, more, in a niche area. But I was like, yeah, we've had multiple clients come to our residential treatment program that would align with those, very things that you're asking about. So you're right. It would be like we rarely hear something that we've never heard before, like really rarely. So, but Erin, first question, can you please elaborate on the differences between internal and external boundaries?
Yes, I think this is such a great question because internal boundaries are so important. So internal boundaries are boundaries that I'm going to set inside of me around my own behavior, my own reactions, my own way of being. And external boundaries are going to be boundaries that I'm setting with somebody else around their behavior, their way of being. And so internal boundaries, like a good example of that would be, I want to define for myself, who do I want to show up in the world as? And I know for myself, post betrayal, one thing was, I don't want to show up in a way where I am screaming and yelling, and that's not who I want to be, regardless of the situation that I'm in. And we all react and respond differently. And there are big emotions under that. But an internal boundary I set for myself is I would take space until I felt, stabilized or congruent enough that I could have a conversation in a calm way. So like that was an internal boundary I set. An external boundary would be around the behavior, what's happening. I don't feel safe when you are yelling and screaming at me. So I'm going to set a timeout and I'm going to walk out of the room. Those external boundaries require action only on your part. They're not to control or manipulate somebody else. They're not necessarily ultimatums. The intention is to be safe. That I want to be in a relationship where I feel safe, I feel valued. These are things that I want. And I'm setting a boundary externally outside of myself with you because the behavior that you're bringing to the table doesn't make me feel safe in this moment. And that can be emotionally safe, physically safe, spiritually safe. I mean, all of the things, financially safe.
And I know we talk a lot about this in different things, and I was thinking, and I don't know if this is true, but I'm kind of going, I think I think it almost feels more hurtful for people if they collapse their internal boundaries. Oh, do you agree? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I set an internal boundary for myself that if I set an external boundary, I'm going to walk out what I said I was going to do. And then when I don't do that, it feels like a betrayal to me, that like I actually set these boundaries for me inside of me because they bring me closer to feeling, more self-esteem, more self-worth, more valued in the way that I want. And when I don't uphold those things, even to myself, there's a sense of self-abandonment that happens. Yeah.
So part of that, my point is, you really want a tribe to help you, like this is not something, because addicts will wear you down, or you'll just get so exhausted or whatever, just, whatever, making sure that you've got the support you need in order to be able to stay true to yourself, take the time that you need, do the self-care that you need. Debbie McRae often talks on the webinars on Fridays. Hers are great for betrayed partners, like lots of practical things. And I posted in the a chat, the Empowered Women's Retreat that's coming up in January. She is fantastic about talking about and sharing examples and helping people, identify what they need, because boundaries are different person to person. I mean, this is a little different. But she often talks about when a partner comes in and they're dysregulated, she starts talking to them about self-care, and I wasn't taking care of myself, and therefore I wasn't able to hold the boundaries because I was just, I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yes. Because when your, internal like gas tank is empty, then when you have to do the hard thing, which is walking out a boundary, which may leave you, feeling even less empty, you're not going to do that. And so I so agree with her. And self-care is important on so many levels, because it fills up that tank and it leaves you feeling I am caring for myself in a way that gives me energy. I feel more empowered. I feel more clear. I'm seeking the support that I need. One of the areas that Debbie often talks about, setting boundaries internally, is around safety seeking, right? So safety seeking behaviors are like those behaviors that would be surveilling the addict's recovery, going through every email, text message, from the past 20 years, all of those things, right? Going through all the video footage of the day. And the reason we talk about that is that our goal is to stay regulated and to take care of ourselves. And those behaviors, even though you may not find something, our brain is searching for what's normalcy. How do I have evidence? I need hard proof evidence that this isn't happening to me again. And if I'm not constantly seeking the knowledge of that is reassuring me that I'm not okay, when really safety is truly found inside. And the ways in which we negotiate that with the addict or with our partner is not going to be found, necessarily in email, but it's saying that safety seeking keeps me dysregulated, and I want to try my best to find safety inside myself and stay regulated. um yeah, and that's a tough one. It is a really tough one, especially with betrayed partners, because for many of them, they say, if I hadn't found that email, I would not have uncovered 20 years of knowing what my reality is. And so they are like, this is what worked for me to get me to the knowledge I have now. I have to continually do this every day to make sure I'm safe. And the truth is, it makes you feel less safe. And then we're not actually looking for the recovery type behaviors that are right in front of us. It does become obvious at some point whether or not somebody is doing the work or they're not. They're either doing the things they say they're going to do. They're accountable, they're reliable, they're able to own, their mistakes. They're able to own stupid lies, like the stupid lie about I went to McDonald's instead of Taco Bell. I don't know why I lied about that. Like those are the evidence, like of actions happening before your eyes. So I love that. That internal boundary was something I personally had to stick to because it made me crazy. It made me feel dysregulated and crazy all the time. Um, yeah.
and and you're not failing if you get dysregulated. It's just
Oh,
data. So do what
par
you
for
need
the
to
course.
do. Yeah, because all of this stuff, like there's ups and downs, and you'll be going, I'm doing really good, and then I'm not. So like, yeah, and I'm sorry, and that's the journey. So speaking of not doing, if if your husband won't tell the truth about infidelity, but you know in your heart that there has been evidence that he has and is being unfaithful, is it helpful to require him to take a lie detector test in order to move on?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in two parts. First of all, seeking integrity, we don't advocate for lie detector tests. Um, they're not admissible in court. They are sensitive. They're essentially a anxiety monitor. And the reason why is after doing this for many, many years, we have clients that come in and we're able to stay calm, cool, and collected because they're good liars and full blown passed the lie detector test and told us they were lying. I've had a client come in with two lie detector tests, literally like 2 days apart. One was pass and one was fail with the exact same questions. Nothing had happened in between. And then on the flip side, ones that were telling the truth, but were so anxious that they failed it. And so the problem with lie detectors is that people put all their eggs in that basket. It's the same thing with safety seeking in some way. It's like, if I have this foolproof way of knowing, then we can move forward. What I would say to you is that he may not be telling the truth about infidelity, but what you said second is there has been evidence. And I imagine there are behaviors that are leading you to feel like something is very off. Go with your gut on that, not necessarily about what's going on, but I'm not okay with these behaviors. These behaviors or the way you're acting towards me is leading me to believe something else is going on because I don't feel like I know you right now. If it's you're distant and distracted all the time, you don't show up when you say you're going to show up. You all of a sudden out of nowhere are working super late nights every single night of the week. Like, so you can set boundaries with those behaviors. It doesn't have to be that I discovered infidelity and now I can be upset. Like, it can be I'm not okay with feeling alone in this relationship. Here's what I would like to see in order for us to begin moving towards a different direction. I'm not okay with you not showing up when you say that you're going to show up. I don't like the way that I feel right now. I feel uncomfortable. I feel tense in my stomach. I have anxiety. And it's leading me to wonder what else is going on. But so you can talk about all the things that are leading you to believe there's infidelity um, as a way of, you know, pointing out that these things aren't okay with you. And the truth is, if infidelity is happening and you have evidence of that, it's okay to say, you know, I actually don't need confirmation of that to set some boundaries here. What I'm saying is I feel alone in this relationship and I don't the way you are defensive and I mean I'm just making up, I'm coloring in the lines here. Um, that those things aren't okay with me and I need to pull away from you to get safe because being in your presence or being in this relationship the way it is right now that isn't going to work for me. It doesn't feel right. um because I think people think that if unless I have direct evidence and I show them in their face and get the truth out of them, then I can make moves and set boundaries. You can set boundaries with any behavior in a relationship that is not working for you, that does not make you feel safe. Um, but yeah, the lie detector thing, it's tough because again, your barometer of trust has got to be what action are they taking to do something different. There's no other way. I mean, lie detectors just are faulty. Yeah.
And I love that you talked about the consequence, because it wasn't just like you're doing this, you're going like, and therefore I need to pull away from you. Like that's the consequence.
Yeah.
This isn't safe. So and the behavior or the consequence is this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be less available. It isn't like you're going to go do what, like, because you can't make anybody do anything, but you can make sure you're doing what you need to do to take care of yourself, in all of this. So I appreciated you sharing. And here's the consequences. I'm going to be stepping away. But yeah, and you even talked about, if you have evidence of stuff and you probably could do it, 1,000 different examples of like, there's evidence and they're still in denial and going so even if you have hard evidence, that does not mean that they're all of a sudden go, oh, totally get it. Yep, you're all right. Like, no, but like denial is I lie to myself first and then everyone else. And that's deeply embedded. Now, this is all from brokenness, and like there is an opportunity for healing. But for you, you can do what you need to do to take care of yourself. You know, the healthy boundaries is a really good starting point.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one. Um, Betrayed partner over 20 weeks from discovery. We both have appropriate sex addiction and betrayal therapeutic support. Can y'all discuss that? I love y'all. Can y'all? Thank you. Discuss the transition from being scared sober to active recovery. My partner thinks he's at a point of transitioning out of being scared sober, and that scares me as a partner because we've relied heavily on that up till now for his sobriety. He's a sex and porn addict. That is such a great question, and thank you for asking. And I can understand your fear, and I can understand his, like, but you know, I need to do things different. So, Erin, what do you got?
Yeah. So I think that scared sober, another way of saying that is like the gift of desperation, as we say in
Yes.
the rooms, is like, I am now desperate enough to do what I have to do because all of a sudden these compartmentalized sides of myself, the behavior I'm doing in the dark, the life I'm living in the light, all came crashing together. And I'm scared shitless. I'm going to lose everything. Right. Obviously, there's a level of cautious optimism. There is a level of fear that we always have, no matter how long you've been at this. Because the truth is, the more time you get sober, we always say that your addiction's over there just doing push-ups, waiting for you to be like, haha, gotcha. You know, that many people who have been sober for, let's say, alcohol for 30 years, they didn't drink, they relapse, pick it up, and it is literally like their alcoholism progressed without them. It went from ugly to really bad in 24 hours. You know, we hear this all the time. So it's the same with this. Obviously, we want to, I think that transition can look like I'm moving from fear to gratitude, right? I'm moving from a place of, I have to do this to like, this is enriching my life. Um, I'm moving from a place of like, if I missed a meeting today, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? To I have a lot of tools in my toolkit and I have the ability to like utilize all of those. So I don't think that transition's a bad thing. I think it's going from I'm internalizing what recovery can do in my life. Those are the addicts that are sitting in rooms saying, I'm a grateful recovering addict, right? Or I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic, or and that's because they actually could see that the addiction was a vehicle for them to help change their life, that it brought them to their knees. That gift of desperation brought them into the rooms or brought them into recovery, got them the help that they needed, to where now I've actually processed some of my past trauma. I've actually made a whole community of people that care about me and are doing this work alongside me. I'm no longer isolating all the time. I know how to communicate with my wife. Like there are gifts of recovery. We don't have to live every day terrified because all we have is today. If you focus on doing the things that you need to do today, then you'll make it to tomorrow, and tomorrow is going to worry about itself, right? So I would just say that transition can look like maturing, right? That it doesn't have to be, I'm still in this like desperate, terrified place. Um, and yes, for many of us, that was necessary to get us to the point where we were willing to surrender and do what it took to get sober. But it doesn't have to be the thing that fuels us forever.
And what Erin was talking about a little bit ago about being regulated, it's okay for you to go, I'm fearful. I am really fearful of you sliding backwards. So, but I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of me, so that you partner, yeah, he is in charge of his recovery. It's still very early, I mean, good recovery, takes a lot longer than 20 weeks. So good for him for being at 20 weeks. You mentioned good therapeutic support, like if he's doing, 12 step, like hopefully he did 90 meetings in 90 days. He's got a sponsor, and he's, working the steps. That you both have done our online work groups. If you haven't, the Betray Partner one starts tomorrow. It's on seekingintegrity.com. But he's done the Sex Addiction 101. We have multiple parts for that particular thing. The more he front end loads this, both of you really, the more you front end load this so you get a solid foundation, I think you get to take that breath of like, I'm going to be okay. I will point out one thing too. Debbie, I got too many Debbies. Debbie Allen in June of 2023 did a webinar, which is posted on our site, and it was the 3-circle plan for partners. And I do point that one out often because, one of the things that can be an inner circle behavior for partners, and everybody picks their own, but is being really focused on what the addict is doing. And so like that can just be, like a visual. You have a 3-circle plan. So, so this is, yeah, he may slip. Like if he, we're addicts, we tend to do the big, oh, I'm doing this, I got this, so he may. So what do you need to do to take care of you so that fear isn't ruling both of your lives, and that you'll be okay? You'll identify, and ideally, if the worst happens and he does, he'll come to you and he'll go, yep. And I'll have the plan of, I'm going to go see my therapist. I'm going to go talk to my sponsor. Here's what I'm doing. That's different than when you've had discovery, after years or decades of acting out. So I know, addiction is hard. It's a chronic condition. It's lifelong. We are never not addicts. It's just, are we an addict in recovery or working towards recovery, or are we in active addiction? There's really no straddling the fence. Like, then you're just waiting to fall into the relapse. So,
Mhm.
but I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here
I'm
on
glad
this.
you
And
mentioned 20 weeks, because I read 20 months. So I
oh,
appreciate that. I was like,
yeah,
so yeah, you're early. Yeah, you're early.
yes, this is
For
early.
healing for
So
her too. Yeah.
yes, yeah, if for both of you, like, oh my gosh, like this, and, and I think I want to go back to that with partners. Your addict has known all along what they were doing, so D-Day is uncomfortable, but it's almost a relief because now I'm not holding this whole huge secret. But you guys get hit really hard, and so you guys are in very different places, which is why we always talk about having you each have different, you know, qualified professional help, and your tribes of people and all of that. So again, the more you lean into this and at these early stages, like you really can get a solid foundation on which to build, and to give hope, because we make it sound like it's like, the people that do this work, like that are willing to engage in this, that are willing to do their healing journey, you can have a better relationship, one that has, more connection and more honesty, is on a deeper level. Like when Erin talked about gratitude, did I grow up wanting to be an addict? No. And I am so incredibly grateful for the gift, that I had the gift of desperation, and I've continued. This is so precious to me that I do what I need to do on a daily basis to continue to maintain it, because, if I have not got my recovery, I have nothing. Like, what she talked about, like, yeah, I'll be dead quick, but it would be not pleasant. So, okay. So, betrayed partner D-Day was 16 months ago. What percentage of the acting out is the betrayer responsible for, if any, and what percentage is the fault of the addiction? In general, I realize every case is unique. That's a great question from someone who loves
Oh, for a
statistics.
second, I was like, I thought she was asking what percentage is the betrayed, like, and I was gonna be like, none.
No, betrayer responsible. Yeah.
I mean, look, they are one person. They
Mm-hmm.
are responsible. So even in my addiction, it's very clear. I was a drug addict. It's very clear that my brain was hijacked, and because I was doing things that was not in line with my moral code, that was not in line with how I knew myself to be, with the people that I loved, with the job that I cared about. Like, so, but I also knew at a core level I had a problem. And my responsibility was to get help for that problem. But I was not going down, like you said, gift of desperation. I also had the nudge from the judge. You have all the things. Um, so it's like they're one person, but they're compartmentalized. We have a lot of guys that come in and are like, I'm an excellent husband and father. And I'm like, what part of you? Like, no, you know, there is a part of them that still shows up for those things. And it is so compartmentalized that they're not even thinking that all of these other things weigh in on the man you show up for your family, right? So they are responsible. They, because at some level, every single one of our clients knew something was up. Like they knew that they were hurting somebody else. They knew that they were defending themselves. They knew, and it was on them to get help. I will say though that what goes offline when we're in an addictive cycle is the prefrontal cortex, which is like judgment, right? It's our ability to make sound judgment, have insight, make decisions. Um, so yeah, to some degree, we talk about control. It's not like a choice, right? Like I chose to be this, but there is choice in getting help. And it is confusing to think of like, well, they were completely out of control. Yes, but for many of them, the signs and symptoms that something wasn't right was there. Their own conscious was knocking on the door. Shame was showing up after every single time they acted out. There's the whole part of the addiction cycle. There's a whole part dedicated to like shame that happens after and what lies we have to tell ourselves to like come back to neutral, right? So I can't give a percentage. In later stage addiction, when that addiction cycle starts to get faster and it's like, ugh, like I can't stop, that's when you got to ring the alarm bell, right? So it is one person. They are responsible because even a person with an addiction knows that something's not right and they need help. It just is not often that addicts ask for help before they're forced. That was true for me, true for you, Tammy. I mean, so it's hard because the brain is certainly not operating at full capacity in terms of making sound decisions because the addiction consumes you at times. The need for that thing becomes more powerful than your need for integrity, your need for connection, your need to work, even.
Well, I did not know how I would live without my addictive behavior. It was terrifying. And the next day, after a pretty major, really major, crisis, I was already trying to backpedal, because I was like, yeah, I need help. It was I think the only one I heard about, let's put it that way, cry for help. And the next day I was already trying to backpedal and go like, oh, the scared straight stuff. Yeah. Oh, I won't do that again. And there's no way I would have ever not been like, there's no way. Now, at 16 months out, like, first of all, steps 4 through 9 are housekeeping. Those are where you work on, cleaning up the wreckage of your past and moving forward. So if he hasn't been, I'm using he and she, sorry. But if he hasn't been doing the steps, that's where, things start to shift is like, now I don't have to continue to carry that stuff around with me. And at 16 months, like, trust me, I knew I had a choice. So anything that I chose to do then, we know how to make amends, which I did. And, I still do. It's called life. But if I do something that is not congruent with the person I want to become, then I need to make an amends, and that can be all kinds of things. And that doesn't even have to be a slip. That can be, just not stellar behavior. So, if at 16 months he hasn't been really getting that solid foundation, then for you, betrayed partner, I'm going to go back to healthy boundaries. What are you doing to take care of yourself, so that that you're okay? I often say too, and like, an addiction is a reason, not an excuse. So it's a reason why we did, crazy things that betrayed partners will never understand, because you would never do that. You actually are using your prefrontal cortex. You use your thinking part of your brain. You're not going, I need to do this, compulsive behaviors, so you won't understand, other than we are broken people. This usually starts before age 10, and with recovery we can change. And so, but for you, making sure that you're taking care of you, and if he's working on getting a solid foundation, he can change. If he's giving you like, well, that was the addiction, yes, and in my addiction I did these things, that's called steps 4 through 9. So okay, discovery 2 months ago, working it out. Partner is sincerely working on recovery. When is it too soon to have sexual intimacy? Do's and don'ts. Great question.
It is a great question. It's hard to lay a blanket out there on this one, like to give you because I don't know what the acting out was like. I don't know if it was, are you sexually safe? I don't know how tumultuous it got. I don't know all the details. What I'll tell you is that we typically recommend between 30 and 90 days of, like, for sure, like sexual abstinence while you're working on establishing some emotional intimacy and trust. People that, and some CSATs will recommend longer, others say there's no big deal. I mean, it depends. But what I will say is this: it's not about the time, it's the quality of what's happening between you. So it is, do I feel like we're having like open discussions? Do I feel like there's emotional intimacy and trust being built back because there are actions being taken that I can witness, that are bringing that trust back? Oftentimes, when we see couples go into like sex too soon, it's because trust wasn't there, and immediately they start having sex and like one of them's triggered beyond control, right? One will get images or flashbacks of what the other partner had been doing. um Also, like, some partners that are like, well, if we have sex, then it's one way to feel closer to you, because I don't feel close to you in any other area in our life right now, or I'm struggling with the time you're spending, in recovery work. Or, I mean, we see people try to use sex as a way to heal something, and it ends up injuring them further. So I just really think it's a matter of, talk to your therapist about what's specifically going on with you guys and when is an appropriate time. Is there some work we need to do to get back to that place, right? That I haven't even like hugged you or kissed you, let alone like having intercourse. Is there a way to, like, we use Masters and Johnson's sense it focus, which is one way of saying this is a gradual way to combine communication, emotional intimacy, and finding our way back to sex. That sex can happen in a number of different ways. It's not about intercourse and orgasm, that there are a number of ways to feel physically close to each other without having the pressure of that at the end. So that's all I would say, is that it's very specific. I do recommend a period of abstinence, though, just to be able to get a solid foundation and start building some communication and trust back.
Yeah, Dr. Rob always says, to partners, like he doesn't recommend you have sex with somebody you don't trust. So if trust is being restored, and I did put Sensate Focus Touch in the chat too, that is, a low pressure, good connection point, place to start. Okay, I'm the sex and porn addict. The discovery was this summer. I've had a lot of challenges before and during my recovery trying to control my anger. As I move along in my journey, I'm finding that it really does feel like an addiction. My question is, how come I have such a hard time finding help for my anger and rage? The suggestions usually include practice breath work and pause when you're angry. The most helpful thing I found is the book Anger Busting 101. Have any suggestions?
Yeah. So I always say anger is a lid. Anger is a reactionary emotion, meaning anger cannot actually exist on its own. There is something going on underneath anger. And my guess would be you're not getting to what that root is. So some will feel anger can happen too, like that, right? And so that's where people say pause. It gives you a time, to like choose a different path, or to take some space to actually, so, journal about it. I We use rage writing. Like, write out all the shit you're mad about, like get it out. And then I want you to look back at that and say, what's really going on here? Did I feel abandoned? Did I feel rejected? Did I feel humiliated? Did I feel powerless and like I didn't have control? Anger is a powerful emotion. And oftentimes, men, especially, will resort to anger when they feel a lack of control and power. So it's really figuring out what's under that and how can I do work on that thing so that I don't resort to this emotion that is literally just a lid holding down the other things that are real. Um, yeah, there's tons out there for anger. There's even 12-step groups for rage and anger. People that are addicted to anger. We have clients often that that's their go-to, and it is the opposite of what is helpful for healing their relationship. So getting in touch with, they have anger intensives too. Just saw one that was so good on the listserv. Uh, I'll have to
If
find
you
it.
think of it, we can put in the chat.
Okay.
So
But it was specifically for men that struggle with anger that also have these compulsive issues. I want to call it Moose Lodge or something. Anyways, I'll remember it. Um, so you can do an intensive on that. If it's breath work, yes, amazing. What people often find in breath work is that experience of peace and calm and coming into, because all of that, ego is removed, and what's left is, and I'll just say for anyone who doesn't know, breath work is not just like breathing. It's a almost psychedelic experience where you go on a journey of doing a very activated breath where you're hyper oxygenating the body, and people have all kinds of experiences. But you're coming in contact with maybe that wounded part of yourself, or that experience of being okay for the first time. Like you're feeling the things that are coming up, but you have to then deal with what comes up, right? So I think it's very revealing to people, and they want to hold on to whatever it is that came up. um, but it's not the solution to anger. It's maybe a way to express it or to get in touch with the thing that's underneath it. So yeah,
yeah,
lots of
yeah, I was thinking the journaling too, because you, yes, it's always like I like anger because it's powerful and out versus feeling hurt. And so like I struggled with that, and I did work to find out what was going on underneath, and abandonment, rejection, all those little fun
yeah.
wounds, but I did the work, and now I have not had an issue in, I called it my white hot rage. It would flash up just like you're talking about. Like I had a name for it, and I hated it, and I had to make sure I stayed away from all people because I was so afraid of how destructive it would be, and I knew it would be. And so, but I also know that in our acting out, all of the acting out squelches that. We cover all of those things. So yeah, when we start getting it on a recovery path, all of that stuff suddenly comes up, and it's overwhelming and it's difficult, but it's an opportunity, and for me, as soon as I feel something like that, I go, oh, my abandonment wound is getting poked. And I say it out loud to myself, because then I'm going like, okay, bring your prefrontal cortex into play. What's really going on here? And journaling is like, there's research on why journaling is so great, and you can do that. I've done the breath work, that Erin's talking about. It is amazing, but you need to go someplace qualified to do that. The journaling you can just do, and then you can take it to your therapist or sponsor and go, this is the stuff that's coming up. Help me figure this out. Don't try it. You don't have to figure this out by yourself. So, but it's normal. I promise you, this happens all the time, and there is help, to navigate through it. So, and the other thing I will say is, if, Erin mentioned earlier, if I'm grateful, if I'm, what can I be grateful for in this moment, then I can't be, rageful and out of control. So, and that's honestly how I used to calm down when I would have that. Okay. I'm the sex porn addict in our relationship, and discovery was a few months ago. I've been spending some time trying to learn more about what the betrayed partner is going through, so that I can better understand my partner's emotions. Are there additional resources that you can recommend to me to learn more about the betrayed partner's grieving and recovery process?
Yeah. Well, I think what first comes to mind is Out of the Doghouse. Um, Dr. Rob wrote a book. We have a work group that actually teaches those skills. It's great. It's for men caught cheating, but it basically gives them the tools and perspective of how to understand what their partner's going through and what actions or activities will actually help to heal the relationship versus wound it further. I think it's an amazing book because it's easy to read. We have the work group then really slows down that process and actually teaches the tools that are taught in the book. Yeah. But there's
And I put
a lot.
the link for the work group in the chat, so you can just click on that. It starts again on Monday, December 2nd. And, and that is helpful. And like, I think it's important to understand all that. And it's also a distraction. I hear lots of, addicts like, it's been a few months now, I want to focus on that. Like, okay, to learn about that, but keep doing your work, because it's way more fun. I want to go help my partner, do your work, because our work is way less, like it's way messier, just like the rage stuff that we were just talking about. So do your work so that you can become a person, that can be there for what a partner is going through. We've got lots of podcasts and stuff on it too.
Yeah. And I also think, you're right. I think I like Doghouse because it spans the two of like doing your work and also how you can walk alongside somebody that's really hurting in a way that I've caused to help them get healing too. But you're right. Yeah. We have a lot of clients that are super hyper focused on, and that comes from the abandonment wound too. Sometimes it's like, I'm afraid they're going to leave. What can I do to make them feel better? And it's like, doing your work provides that safety. Um, yeah.
Okay, so the next one, betrayed here, 5 months since D-Day. We have a CSAT and ABSATs. My partner is a sex porn and rage addict and identifies as an alcoholic. He quit alcohol a few years ago. He also has ADHD. He says that since discovery, not once has he masturbated, touched himself, looked at porn, had an urge for another woman, looked at non-porn, fantasized, lusted, or objectified, besides a few sex dreams about me. He is he has done a huge digital detox, doesn't use social media anymore, and we rarely socialize with others in person anymore. We are with each other most of the day, and he works from home. I want to believe it, but I find it hard to believe that he has done zero of these things since discovery, given he was lying and betraying our entire relationship. And now we realize that he has been a sex and porn addict for decades. Is it possible that he hasn't done any of those things since discovery? Or is this just like when he said, I no longer look at porn because our sex life is so satisfying?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. So I wouldn't say it's not possible. I also don't think there's a whole lot of room here to act out, right? Because we're saying like we're together all the time. We're not seeing outside people. We're focused on our work. I mean, which I think the pendulum swung a little bit, right? Like we've corrected. You'll come back to a place that feels like a little bit safer to live life a little bit more like you used to. Um, but yeah, it is possible. And like on a previous question, talking about being scared straight, there is in those first few months like a real fear. Some of our guys go to the opposite. That pendulum swing goes to like sexual anorexia. Like they're almost like terrified to even have an arousal response at all because they think it's gonna like take them out. Um, and our obviously our goal is healthy sexuality, right? Is to find that middle ground between, you know, obviously we don't want to be acting out and hurting people and lying and hiding and all the shame. We want to find a path of sexuality that is shame free, that is, in line with our morals, it's in line with the decisions and in our relationship. But yeah, I mean, all I can say is yes, it's possible. It's also, I want to normalize for you that it's also hard to believe because you've been lied to for so long, that of course you would be questioning what's happening in front of you. I would be saying, as long as the actions match what he's saying, you know, go with that. And be sure that you're having like, oh, you could be around each other all day and not have meaningful conversations, right? I think oftentimes couples get to that place, but making sure you're doing a check-in or a relationship board meeting or where you're actually having those open conversations and dialogues, and that the actions he's taking match what he's saying. And from what I can see, I mean, I don't see meetings.
That's where I was going, because we if mm, call me skeptical, and I don't mean to be a downer on all this, but here's like, you said that he's been a sex and porn addict for decades. He struggled with alcohol, so that he magically stopped everything on D-Day and has not even had a thought, like hasn't like
Oh,
like
I didn't see
like
that.
oh yeah, no, he's had no urge to, hasn't fantasized, hasn't, like, he's not objectified anyone, like there's, like, that's a lot to give up after decades, and especially if, like, you guys are only and I'm glad you're seeing professionals, but if he is only seeing a CSAT for 50 minutes once a week, and this is decades old, 24/7 issues, the acting out is a symptom. It's, it feels like it's a problem, but we're using that to cover up all this other stuff. And so like, I would really want to see for myself, if I was that betrayed partner, a lot of action, like the daily 12-step meetings, our drop-in groups, that he's been doing the online work group for Sex Addiction 101, all of those things, working with a sponsor, like that would be a good person to meet with in person, and to have a social connection. You guys being the only tribe for each other is not, like we always are talking about, you guys each need your own tribe so that you have safe people to talk to and get support from, not you've betrayed me and now I need to support you. So like I'm going to go back to what I say always: healthy boundaries for you. What are you doing to take care of yourself so that he and his addiction and all his behaviors aren't the focus? You're there 24/7, um yeah, it's a little challenging.
Well, I also, thanks for bringing up fantasized lusts that are objectified. Now that I see that, that is highly unlikely. But I do have to ask, like, so this one gets controversial, but like we've talked about actions, meaning behaviors, right? That would be the masturbation, touching himself, looking at porn, period, right? Those would be relapses, right? Or, whatever his inner circle behaviors are. The other ones, fantasized, lusted, objectified, right? Those are things that we would consider middle circle, which would be that would go to a sponsor or a recovery brother, which if he doesn't have those things, then he doesn't have anyone to talk to about those things. Because those are things we wouldn't say every time you have a thought that you've relapsed and you're not sober, because that'd be like an alcoholic. Every time you think about alcohol, now you've relapsed, even though you never drank alcohol. That's you're rewiring your brain that's been working one way for all this time. It's not going to be overnight. That we give tools for that, right? Like a 3-second rule. If I look at something that I would normally leer at and objectify, I have 3 seconds to bounce my eyes to something else and go to a different place in my mind. So we give tools for all of these things. And of course, if I'm in prolonged fantasy about somebody else, like I need to talk to, if I'm even fantasizing at all, I have fantasy, I talk to my sponsor, I talk to my recovery brothers, I'd be honest about that. And of course, if I'm doing a check-in, let's say with my partner, I may say, this week I did struggle a couple of times with fantasy, but I reached out to my sponsor, I talked to him about it. We don't get into the details of what did you fantasize about. Let's talk about, because that's asking for more triggers for you. So now every time that person is materialized in public, like that's not, we don't want that. We don't need to know the confines of our partner's mind. We do need to absolutely they need to be held accountable for their behaviors. So that him not having a single thought in 5 months, not possible, like highly unlikely. What maybe happening is he doesn't feel that he can say that in the relationship. And I know that that's an ugly thing to say right now, but he is probably presenting, I'm doing all of these things. And if I say I had a thought about somebody else and it's going to create this huge rupture, like I'm just going to go with, no, I didn't have that thought.
Okay.
Just
So the next one. In some of my other groups, I have been told that SA cannot be rehabilitated. I'm a recovering alcoholic and have been sober for 4 years. So I get what it's like to be in addiction. I should also mention that my husband was arrested for luring a minor and pled guilty. We were married for 30 years, separated for 5, and are both starting to see CSATs. I've seen mine for 4 times and he has seen his just once. He wants to reconcile, but is this a waste of time and money?
okay. Well, first thing I need to do is separate out addiction and offending. Okay.
Thank you.
So sex addiction um, is compulsive sexual behavior, but it is not implying that there is a non-consenting victim. Minors cannot consent, right? So yes, some sex addicts do offending behaviors. and it's certainly all their behavior is offensive, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. But offending behavior as classified by the legal system. Okay. So that would be in minors. There's a lot of, can sex addiction be rehabilitated? 100%. I know that. I see it every single day. I believe in hope. I believe in rehabilitation, or I would not be sitting here right now. This would not be what I'm dedicating my career to. Tammy would be out the door. We would not be here. We believe in this. When we're talking about somebody who is offending, has offending behaviors, that gets a little more complicated, right? So does the person have a dedicated paraphilia where that is they are a minor attracted person, or a pedophile and they don't have attraction for other people? Like that gets a little bit more confusing. Are there people that have acted out in that way that have rehabilitated? Yes. Yep, there has been. But I would just make sure that you're getting specific help for, so CSATs are going to be really well trained in what they shouldn't take on as well. What is the line between addiction and offending, and when should someone be referred to like an LSOTP, right? I don't even know how to say the acronym right now, but licensed sex offender treatment provider. I think I got it. Yes, and he likely has had to be in touch with somebody of that nature anyways, with having been arrested. So all I would say is, I don't think you're wasting time and money, but you need to lean on the professionals that actually know you and know him and know what the history looks like. Was this an escalation of an addiction, or has this always been a part of him? Is this an arousal template thing? Is this a fetish? Like you would have to have more insight into what's actually going on with the two of you. And many people would say that would be a deal breaker for them, certainly. And others are willing to work. So I'm sure he wants to reconcile. It's for you, you need more information on, is this person able to be attracted to adults? Is this person able to put in the work and be safe from minors? Yeah. There's a lot of information out there, but certainly when you're in the offender category, rehabilitation is more difficult.
And I, sorry, I just put in, there's a blog and I wrote it, but it actually listed 4 webinars on should I stay or go. And so that's a quick little reference for you to consider. I want to separate out you seeing your CSAT, not a waste of time or money. Like, this is a lot, and you getting support. I honor that regardless of what you do with reconciling or not. But yeah, Erin's right. And there are some CSATs that are dual trained and actually do work both with offenders and, a sex addiction. I always say it's like the Venn diagram. I love my math, where there's an overlap. Not all offenders or addicts are, both, but there is a little, section that does overlap. So addiction treatment can be effective for some addicts, but it depends, dedicated or not. So, but I think, like you working with your qualified professional to get support. This is a lot, and it was a long time. You guys have been married a long time, so, and now separated a long time. So at some point, it's like, what do you need to do to take care of you, get support for you, and navigate, the space. There's grief work to do, regardless of whether you stay or go. There's, grieving the loss of the relationship you had, the husband you thought you had, all of this stuff, the future, that, your next 20 years to get, whatever it is, so there's a lot for you, and getting support around that, is a good thing. But trust you and your tribe to help you, figure out what, I often see, like people go, I know I should go, and I'm just making this up, but, but their heart isn't there yet, because like like you're writing this, you still care about this man. Like, like there's clearly, you've got a long history together, and then there's when I see the heart and the head align, and then there's, more of a decision, but, that takes time and space. So give yourself the grace to, to be okay with that in between while you make a decision. But hopefully, I mean, check out that blog, because, there was a lot of really great, people that contributed on that. Okay, I'm the betrayed partner 4 months into discovery. I have triggers all the time while I'm with my husband. Should I be sharing when the triggers occur with him, or do I self-regulate and ground ground myself on my own. Great question. You have experience with this. So,
Yeah. So I'd say both things are good. Okay. I would, I think that for me, grounding myself and regulating myself and giving myself what I need is my first priority. I absolutely want to share with him, but I don't always do it in the moment. I may later on when the kids are not around and then I can say to him, "Hey, because here's the thing. They are oftentimes many of our clients, conflict avoidant, or they're triggered by conflict at all. Like they're trying to figure out how to navigate your emotions. And if you want the best shot at them being able to actually hold the space for your emotions and actually meet you in your pain, then I would say doing it in a time where the two of you are able to actually talk and you say, "This is one of those moments I want to share some of my pain with you. Are you available for that?" Okay. And this is advanced stuff. Okay. I know that in the beginning it's like throwing daggers all over the place and it's chaos and it's in crisis and big emotions on both sides. The goal would be to get to a place, and this has worked for me and it's worked for a lot of the guys that we've worked with. It's just saying, I I want to share some of my pain with you. Are you in a place where you can receive that? And what that's triggering to their brain is, oh, this is a moment I can help her heal. I'm gonna put out my hands, literally like my container, to be able to hold her pain and not take this in as it's all about me. Now I have to go into a shame spiral, and which will then it's either they go into a victim mode or they go into, I am defensive, angry, all this. So that's my advice is like I regulate myself and then I take it to them. You know what? Earlier today when we drove by that place, this like ugly image came back to me and I got this like shooting pain in my heart and it just hurt. And then they can meet you in that pain and say, God, that has to have sucked. That has to have been really difficult. Like, I can't imagine what that would be like. What can I do for you right now that would it be helpful or be healing for you? That's a much more healing conversation than like, sometimes what comes out sideways is like you drive by the place and you're like, oh yeah, that's a place you'd want to fucking go, or like in the moment it can come out as like accusatory and shame based and your trigger is not doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing something wrong. It's that their past actions are being brought up in the present, you know so that's my advice for triggers.
okay. Can we do one more? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel safe having sex with my husband, and it is difficult to think for the rest of my life I won't want to have sex, even though he is cheating, and I do want to. So get that. So even though he is cheating, so it sounds like that's still going, and I don't want to. How do you deal with this? Sometimes I do have sex with him, and I feel like I'm betraying myself.
Well, if he is cheating, I would not be having sex with him. If he is not in a place of ownership, accountability, and recovery, I would not be having sex with him. I do understand, like, yeah, being in a place where, hey, I'm a sexual being, I enjoy sex, I want to have sex, and I'm partnered with somebody that I don't feel safe with right now. That can feel really crappy. I would say, you know, you can have sexual experiences without your husband. I would get real comfortable getting romantic with you. You know what I mean? Um, like set the lights, get the candles. Like I'm serious that you can have a fully functioning sexual life without somebody else. I would not betray yourself and have sex with someone who is cheating on you. I would not do that. You're absolutely right. You are. And that at the end of the experience doesn't even feel fulfilling. It feels like a part of you is left behind. I mean, that's the most vulnerable you'll ever be. Is somebody inside of you. And to feel like I don't feel safe and yet I'm doing this is a betrayal of you. Um, so I would say no, I'm not going to betray myself until I feel safe. I'm not going to have sex with someone I don't feel safe with and I don't trust and is not working towards healing this. I'm not doing it. And I've got other ways to take care of me, that's for sure. Right. So I, and getting support for you, get support for yourself, because it's a lonely place if you don't have support.
Thank you all for the questions. Send you a few of you some quick, here's some resources, things, but again, reach out to us. Join next week. Dr. Rob will be back, and then Erin will be back in 2 weeks. So keep coming back. Drop-in groups, webinars, lots of different resources. And if you have not done it and you are a betrayed partner, the Betrayed Partner Work Group, Angela does a great job of helping, navigate this very confusing space. And so, I can't encourage that enough. It's a low cost, high impact on seekingintegrity.com. It starts again tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Erin.
Have a great night.
Bye.